And joining me now for discussion and analysis is retired U.S. Air Force Special Operations Major Glenn Ignazio. Sir, welcome to the program tonight. The Pentagon has confirmed that Russia fired cruise missiles from their airspace at Ukraine. Team Biden is using this attack to demonstrate that if the West establishes a no-fly zone, it wouldn't make much of a difference. What do you make of their assertion?
Well, it is fairly accurate. I mean, these missiles, these cruise missiles, have a range of up to 1,000 miles. And if you look at Ukraine, its width is about 700. So, yes, the missiles can be launched within the confines of Russia. And so the no-fly zone, it is a great idea, but let's look at it in practice. Again, we've talked about if there's an aircraft shot down and it's a Russian aircraft, triggering a possible war. The same thing with the air defense systems that would be shooting at our aircraft or our NATO aircraft. Those would have to be taken out, and that could be either in Russia or you're going to be killing a Russian soldier by taking them out. So you have to think about the rules of engagement and what happens if the Russian aircraft just run into Russia. So it is a very complicated situation. So it's a great concept, but actually executing it is very dangerous. And that's the part you have to remember, and most people don't.
Yeah, you're right, sir, because a lot of people are asking for it. But when they actually hear what that really means and what that could mean for the United States, they do say, well, maybe we should take a second look at that. Ukrainian President Zelenskyy he's repeatedly requested that no-fly zone, but many governments have shied away from that in fears of angering Putin. Estonia, though, has become the first NATO country to support Zelenskyy's call. Do you think it's just a matter of time that a no-fly zone is instated? Because we know Zelenskyy is going to be addressing Congress tomorrow morning. He could possibly ask for that again. What do you expect to hear from him?
Well, I think that, he has taken a great leadership and really been vocal both with, within Ukraine and also internationally with him reaching out to Canada, the United States, and so forth. The interesting part is that, Russia's only used about 100, a little bit more than 100 of their aircraft within Ukraine when they have 1,000. So that's one of the things that's actually perplexing many people within the American military and the Air Force of why he hasn't really gone full on. So is that being held in reserves for something more? That question resolves in the mind of Putin. But the no-fly zone would be, again, great. But, there's a lot of other things that can be done with the support of the U.S. and NATO. And looking at, is there more of an impact if we did something on the ground? I'm not talking about committing particular NATO troops, but what else can we do to really bolster up Ukraine, the Ukrainian military, and give them as much protection as possible? That's what really needs to be discussed in a very tactical way to give them the strength that they need and the defenses that they need. And of course, as your preamble was perfect, the President of the United States has been silent. And even if you go back to the conflict in Kosovo many years ago, and in all my history in the military with various presidents, they've always been in front, leading, vocal, and engaged. And that's something that really needs to happen here.
Yeah, you're right. Always a step behind, it seems that we are. So NATO, sir, has begun conducting massive scale drills in Norway, less than 200 miles from the Russian border. These drills, they're held every 2 years, but how significant are they right now?
Well, these exercises are pre-planned very long in advance, and a lot of times Russia would know about this. There's a lot of notifications that this goes on so that they know it's not a conflict, it's not a preamble to a launch. So this exercise has been known to exist for a while. It is definitely a interesting part because it is during the invasion of Ukraine. But at the same time, they can really do these exercises to prepare for something that could be additional action. In addition, this would be also a practice to protect other NATO countries in case he wanted to escalate. And in all honesty, a buildup of incredible forces in the NATO countries, surrounding Ukraine could also be a great statement to Russia that, hey, we are not messing around, and trying to give some kind of inkling that we really have a serious military and we will hold you to bear if you do anything else.
Yeah, no, that absolutely makes sense. Vladimir Putin is fueling one of Europe's worst refugee crises in history. The number of people fleeing Ukraine, it surpassed 3 million. And this is a story you're personally working on. Tell us more about that.
Yes, been working with numerous organizations, preparing to possibly go over there. We've got a couple of team members already engaged in there, and there's a lot of organizations. So with 3 million people, again, your preamble was perfect. They are leaving everything behind, and it's mainly women and children because the men have to stay behind and fight. So as this goes into Poland and others, that is a huge, huge, massive amount of people to be able to take care of. Not only is that the problem, you also have people that are either injured, old, where they can't move. I saw your correspondent helping out earlier. And at the same time, if they've been injured, if they're ambulatory or non-ambulatory, can they move in themselves? So a lot of these volunteer forces, which were prior military or retired military folks, are actually going in and helping them out. It's actually not very different than what we saw in Afghanistan. And honestly, the State Department's not really helping that much as well. But yes, these individuals are really people of action that are making a difference, and they need to be supported as well to make sure they have supplies to help out the Ukrainian people.
Absolutely. If it wasn't for folks like them, then people may not be able to get out. I want to talk to you quickly about. I've spoken to members of the Ukrainian Parliament, and they obviously want that no-fly zone, but they say we need supplies, we need weapons, but they really need those planes. They're saying those MiG-29s. I know the reason why President Biden says we should not, they shouldn't get these, but is there a solution? Because we know Russia, they're very strong when it comes to the air. Ukrainian military is very strong on the ground, but they say they need help in the air. What would you suggest?
So leading into that point, yes, the actually Ukraine military has trained with U.S. forces, including their fighter aircraft and their fighter pilots very well. So they are very well trained, and they are doing a great job. Now, the thing that you talked about with the aircraft, this is the really confusing and the flip-flop that I see with the U.S. is originally we said to Poland, we give you the green light to give the MiGs to the Ukraine. Poland said no at the time because they really weren't coordinated. They came up with a great plan saying, hey, we can give the MiGs to the Ukrainian, but we'd like it to fly out of, say, Germany or something else because they're not as close. Thought that was a great idea. We flip-flop and said, okay, at that point, no. Doesn't make sense to me because they're both NATO countries. Giving those MiGs to Ukraine would be fantastic because they're the ones that would be fighting with those aircraft. We're already giving them missiles and so forth to use. So those are lethal, equipment, lethal missiles to be able to take action on the Russians. So what's the difference if it's aircraft? I don't understand why that should be held up, and press forward would be the best thing to help them.
I think a lot of people are asking that because we're giving them, we're giving them supplies, we're giving them the equipment, but we don't want to get them the planes. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what President Zelenskyy says tomorrow when he addresses Congress. Thank you so much, retired Major Glenn Ignazio. Appreciate to have you, and thank you for your service, sir.
Thank you, and thanks for letting me comment.